anytime we got a guest on, Coach Mack, Brice, anybody like that, if y'all got a question, just call Lucas like you normally would, 615-737-1045. Say, hey, I want to join the discussion. Here's my question. We'll run you right in there. We like that kind of party. John Brice joins us now on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. Brice, what'd you think about the national championship game? Is Kirby now ready to go on a multi-title run of his own after this, or should we just, say, hey, it's been 41 years, let's enjoy this one for a minute?
Yeah, I would tell Georgia fans to soak this one up. Much like the Braves World Series, when it arrived in '95, I thought it was the first of more that would come, not necessarily in a row, but in the next few years, and that wasn't the case. And so it's caused me to savor this 2021 World Series by the Braves that much more. So 41 years is a really, really long time, and I would tell them to just soak it in and not look towards that. Georgia had been building to this moment for a long time. I think the 2017 game fueled a lot of what happened in the game on Monday night, and certainly fueled the foundation of what Georgia built thereafter and used to make up the roster that won that game on Monday night. So I'm not remotely ready to proclaim Georgia as starting a new dynasty, but I congratulate Georgia certainly for the win Monday night.
So you got to go and make a bet right now for who will win the championship next season, and I'll give you Bama or the field. Who would you pick?
Oh, Bama or the field.
Ooh, he cornered you, Brice.
Yeah, we're 48 seconds in here. Sorry about that.
That's
Yeah.
there,
Oh, man, I like to gamble a little bit, so I'm going to go with the field just because they'll give me more teams to have a vested interest in. So I'll take the field, but I would expect the field to be playing against Bama in the title game. So my early would be Ohio State versus Bama for the CFP title next year. That would probably be who I would think looking ahead. That would be my projection.
John Brice joins us at John D. Brice 1. You can catch all his work there on Twitter or FootballScoop, where they do fantastic stuff all the time.
Well, John, man, you're always kind of breaking news or informing us about a lot of different things in college football. But where is college football expansion going, and what's taking so long? And where do you want it to go? Do you want it to stay the same?
Good questions, Blaine. I appreciate it. It's supposed to be going to 12 teams. I think it absolutely needs to expand and get beyond the current 4-team format. I know folks will say that's just going to create more blowouts, or it's not going to do this, or it's not going to do that. But the only way to kind of work against some of these juggernaut programs, in my opinion, is to add an extra layer. We've seen it in the NFL for sure, and certainly there's more parity and a more level playing field at the NFL level, but we have seen some wild card teams in the NFL make it all the way to the Super Bowl and even win, I think, and we've seen it in baseball even. And so I think it's needed in college football, and here's why I contend the expansion is more important. When you see an Alabama and a Georgia in the championship game like we did on Monday night, it's not just testament to the personnel that they had on the field. It's testament to the depth of staff they had off the field. And I think that's very significant. And so when an Alabama has 3 to 4 weeks to prepare for a Cincinnati, it's going to find and dissect every single weakness that the Bearcats had, because they've got so much more staff than what Cincinnati had. And I talked to a member of the Notre Dame staff that was on Notre Dame's 2018 college football playoff squad, and he told me that offensively they had like 3 analysts, and Clemson had 9 analysts going into that game, plus all the, of course, the on-field staff being equal. But still, that's 9 guys versus 3. So if you're looking just at man hours, and they don't work a 40-hour week, but if it was a 40-hour week, you're talking about 360 man hours versus 120 man hours. And so that's why I think that the depth of those coaching staff show up the more time they have to prepare. That, to me, is where the resource glut is most advantageous for an Alabama or a Georgia. The longer the time, the greater those additional resources have an impact on scouting, on planning, on finding weaknesses, on doing all of those things. So I think if you have an expanded playoff and you play some games more closely to the end of the regular season and conference championships, you might have a little bit better chance. And look, we've seen it. We saw a Texas A&M team that ended up with some bad losses this year find a way to beat Alabama. So I still think that there are ways, if you expand the playoffs, for some of those lesser teams to trip up somebody, especially if it's a shorter gap.
Brice, you mentioned all those extra staffers. I just realized now why Alabama lost that game, because Arkansas State got their key extra staffer in Butch Jones. He was gone. I mean, he wasn't there to help them prepare for that championship game. So that's – wow, Arkansas State really had an effect on that game.
You have a straight face on that.
Yeah, I bet he's going to send you a Butch Jonesboro T-shirt now.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure I could probably get my
Can't
hands
win
on.
without me.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, since we're talking about the staff and naturally the head coach gets all the credit for it, who was I guess, Football Scoop's Coach of the Year, and what were the factors involved in making that decision? Give us your top three and who was the winner.
Yeah, there were a number of factors. Some things I like about our Football Scoop Coach of the Year is that we also do positional Coach of the Years, and we also incorporate voting by our previous winners. And so we didn't just name a single Coach of the Year or a single position of the year. We offered them, we voted on a strength and conditioning Coach of the Year, which was Georgia Scott Sinclair, and we made that announcement prior to the championship game. And we made Brian Hartline the wide receivers Coach of the Year for his work at Ohio State. And so we had a number of those, and I think that that's kind of what sets it apart. We do it at the FCS level. We do it at the Division III level. We do it at the top levels. We do a special teams coordinator. We do a defensive coordinator, offensive assistant Coach of the Year, all of that stuff. And I think that those are the ones that set it apart. In terms of me, my personal ballot, I had Luke Fickell on there. I had Billy Napier on there, and these matched up with some of the national awards that I voted on as well. I had Luke Fickell on there. I had Billy Napier on there, and I want to say that my third one was perhaps I can't remember. Oh, Dave Aranda. So Dave Aranda was, I think, one of my top choices for Coach of the Year, and a lot of things. This was a year where there were a number of, I think, better than expected coaching jobs. From Sam Pittman at Arkansas certainly was very high up.
Yeah.
And I had him in top 5 on a couple of my ballots. And so, again, those are the things that I like that we do at Football Scoop. We do the position Coach of the Year, the quarterbacks Coach of the Year, Zach Kitley, the really, really gifted offensive assistant coach who's done a number of great things and seeing his career start to take off. So, and I was at the AFC Coaches Convention over the weekend in San Antonio from Saturday through Tuesday. And we hosted a mixer on Monday evening, and that was one of the things that we heard back from the coaches the most, is that we really appreciated the fact that, or they really appreciated the fact that we don't just zero in on one top guy and go from there. We go all the way down to a National Director of Football Operations Award, and again, that's voted on by people in that industry around the country, the people who actually do it, and then we reach out and speak to the coaches. So that's what I like the best, is that we try our best to not only pay attention over the course of the season, but then to get out and talk to the coaches and really listen to them. And we've got another cool one that's my personal pet project that I'm working on for this month, and that is our 2022 Minority Coaches Watch List. And we launched our first one. I did it a year ago in December of 20 for the 2021 year, and I'm getting ready to launch our second one. And it's an intensive project, but I really like doing it and shining a light on the minority coaches that are really starting to rise up in the profession.
Must read Football Scoop by John Brice.
So, Brice, let's take this a little bit further. What's the biggest non-head coaching move from staff to staff this offseason? Like, not a head coach hire, but a coordinator, somebody like that moves from one school to another. What's the biggest one of those moves you've seen this offseason?
I don't know if we're done seeing those yet. Otherwise, I would say that Jeff Lebby going from Ole Miss to Oklahoma is probably my leading contender for that move right now. I think that that's a absolutely significant move. I think that Jeff Lebby is another guy that I would be surprised if Jeff Lebby's not a head coach in 3 years. And I think that Oklahoma really was reeling a little bit after Lincoln left so abruptly, and they were facing a lot of things. And I think the way they handled getting Brent Venables, they had a very thorough process, and then Venables had Lebby secured. By the time he was taking the job, he knew Jeff Lebby was going to be his new offensive play caller. I think that sets him up for the best path to success from the start at Oklahoma. And it's not often you see a coach get to take over a program that has been in really great shape. But I just saw that Oklahoma finished in the top 10 for the 7th consecutive year, and that's the 3rd time in program history that it's had at least 7 years in a row of top 10 finishes. So he's taking over a program that overall is in really great health, and now he's bringing in a guy that I think is arguably the single best offensive coordinator in college football.
Wow, John.
Sticking with Oklahoma, John, where do you think the quarterback's going to end up, Caleb Williams?
Yeah, there's so much chatter out there right now. Honestly, I think it has a lot to do with NIL opportunities. I've heard some chatter about Georgia. I've heard some chatter about North Carolina. More recently, it's been about Southern Cal. Obviously, he's got the relationship there with Lincoln Riley, and we've now seen Jackson Dart enter the transfer portal in addition to some of these other guys that were on the roster there, Keaton Slovis as well. So obviously there's that familiarity, and there's something going on out west where they think that Lincoln Riley has somebody to bring in, or they believe that Lincoln Riley has their quarterback of the future because, again, we already saw Keaton Slovis and Jackson Dart transfer out of the Trojans program.
Hey, this is – I wrote this down just because I know you still keep an eye and an ear on the Tennessee program. I was just curious because we haven't heard anything in weeks. What's the latest on? Remember Jeremy Pruitt and his lawyer? They were going to out everybody and bring. I haven't heard anything about that. They had said we're going to do it by this date, and they mentioned Rick Barnes' name. What's going on with that?
Especially he's unemployed now. The Giant staff is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is unemployed now. He has tried very hard for the last month to get back into the college game. He's tried at SEC positions. He's tried at Group of 5 positions. But again, the expectation there is that he's going to receive a justified and lengthy show cause penalty from the NCAA. And I think that judgment is due sooner rather than later. So that's an interesting situation to monitor, because if with Jeremy Pruitt now unemployed and the Giants seeking an entirely new staff, and with SEC teams and other college teams not really giving him much of a look this cycle, I can see frustrations again boiling over for Jeremy Pruitt in that regard, Mickey.
So you think maybe we hear something from that sooner than later?
It wouldn't be the most surprising thing to me, no, sir.
Okay, all right. John Brice, our guest from Football Scoop, here on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, John, I mean, do you think there will be some colleges, coaches, head coaches, still possibly maybe filtering to the NFL? Because you're hearing a lot of names.
Yeah, certainly. There's one not too far from me here, and I'm in South Bend, so not too far away in Ann Arbor. There's one who I believe is very, very interested in returning to the NFL, and frankly, based on people I've talked to on his staffs in previous years, and including just last year, he's had that interest there. So Jim Harbaugh wants to get back in the NFL from a number of people that I trust greatly, and a number of people at very high-profile programs, including the Michigan program, have indicated that Jim Harbaugh has a desire to get back to the NFL. And I think that's why you saw both parties so amicably rework his contract after the disappointing 2020 season, to make it more amenable for both sides should they decide to get out of the contract after this year. And if not, then I think you may see Harbaugh try to rework his Michigan deal, but he absolutely has interest in returning to the NFL. And look, he took a team to a Super Bowl in the NFL, and so obviously he's got some personality quirks, but we all do. And he did some really good things. It's just the people I talked to that have worked with him have said you've got a certain shelf life with him because you either get tired of him or he either gets tired of you. He's coming off his best season at Michigan, and it was a historic season for Michigan, and then they were not remotely even competitive against Georgia, really, after all that time to prepare. So I think there's also a little bit of a sense of what more can Harbaugh do at Michigan, because they're not recruiting like Ohio State is. I don't know. Ohio State then went out and made probably the second best non-head coaching hire that you asked me about, Mickey, and going and getting Jim Knowles away from Oklahoma State to run the Buckeyes defense.